The year is 2004. YouTube is still a few months away from being founded when Mario Party 6 for Nintendo GameCube launches on store shelves in Japan and the US near the end of the year. At this moment in time, Mario Party is a yearly franchise. With the exception of 2001, Mario Party had been on a streak of late year releases since 1998. And that means that in order to convince fans to buy another entry of the same core experience, new themes and gimmicks are necessary to warrant a purchase. For Mario Party 6, that new theme was a day and night mechanic organized by the new characters Brighton and Twilla, and the new gimmick was the Nintendo GameCube Microphone. 2 years before the Wii would release and get a slew of random peripherals ranging from a wheel to a crossbow to a fishing rod, the GameCube was carefully dipping its toes into the waters of accessories. It mostly used the Mario brand for this. There was Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix, which came with the Nintendo GameCube Action Pad, a dance pad controller, and the DK bongos to be used with the Donkey Konga games and Jungle Beat, but this microphone was different. These past two peripherals not only played into the selling point of musical controllers during the peak of games like Guitar Hero, they also had entire games built around them. The microphone was nothing like that. It came pre-packaged with Mario Party 6 and only worked with Mario Party 6, but it's not like the game relied on using it in the slightest. In fact, using it was entirely optional, almost as if it was possible to own the game without the microphone. Design-wise, the mic also falls in line with the accessories that came before it rather than after it. It doesn't transform the GameCube controller, well, it doesn't even interact with it. It is its own standalone item, a small grey slender mic, seemingly inspired by those you might see on all TV shows. The only bit of color is provided by the blue button, which needs to be pressed in order for the microphone to actually record something. This button was, let's call it low quality, prone to not registering your pressing and finicky as hell. But in retrospect, the most interesting part of the peripheral hardware-wise was where the wire at the bottom went. Unlike the dance pad and DK bongos, which needed to be plugged into a controller slot, the microphone had to be inserted in the memory card slot. At first sight, this seems like a bizarre decision, but when you think about it, it's actually a bit of a masterstroke. Mario Party is a multiplayer-focused game after all, and since the GameCube had no online capabilities, if you wanted to play with 4 people, you needed 4 controllers all plugged into the GameCube. The microphone using a memory card slot instead of a controller one meant you could use it even when playing with 4 people, which wouldn't have been possible otherwise. So let's say you managed to find a couple of friends with controllers and plugged in your GameCube microphone. What would then be waiting for you to do with it in Mario Party 6? Well, this is where the true bizarrity of the microphone comes from for me, because the answer is not that much, all things considered. A meager 5 minigames use the thing, and all are 1v3 variants. Your Verbal Assault, Shoot Your Mouth Off, Word Herd, Talkie Walkie and Fruit Talktail. I have to be honest here, they're not very good. Maybe it's because English is not our native language, maybe this piece of plastic just doesn't capture audio very well, but what the minigames ask of the holder of the microphone was simply too much for young Piantopedia and his friends to handle. The mic doesn't try to listen for loudness or whether any sound was made at all. It asks you to say specific words. Take Verbal Assault for example, where the solo player must call commands for his big machine. These include Missile, Drop Bombs, Laser and even Bullet Bill and Goomba. In my experience, the microphone simply was not well equipped to deal with such specific phrases, especially in a high tension environment like Mario Party minigames always are. Now, I must say the other minigames do go for easier words, such as numbers, directions or types of fruit, but the problem of this device simply not realizing I'm saying strawberry remained. Fortunately, these mic minigames appearing during party and solo modes could be turned off in the options setting, after which they could only still be found in the special mode that revolved entirely around this gimmick, the appropriately titled Mic Mode. Although maybe we should scratch that, because for some reason the game also allows you to use the GameCube controller for this, where you could then select certain commands using the buttons instead of saying them. Everything about this is so confusing to me. Like, on one hand I fully get it, because like I've said, this microphone was no Audio-Technica, It wasn't even a Wii wheel, it barely worked. But on the other hand, if you're gonna make it such a minor part of the game, and then also make it optional to use in its own dedicated mode, why is this piece of plastic bundled in with the game? I know this didn't cost a fortune to produce, but I don't think I've ever seen a game being bundled with hardware that was so unimportant as this. It's like shipping those compatible Nintendo Switch games with a Labo VR kit for free. It's completely unnecessary. But anyway, let's get back to mic mode for a second, which consists of 3 different modes. One is just minigame mode for the 5 mic minigames, simple as that. It's the other 2 that are unique and interesting. First there is Speak Up, which is basically a quiz that, for Mario Party standards, is actually kinda difficult. I mean, can you tell who this character / Beyblade is? If you said Waluigi, congrats, you're correct. But I don't know about you, but I didn't find that easy to spot. From a visual perspective, I've always really liked the memory segment of this game, which puts the characters in an almost Paper Mario-like environment. It's an interesting sight. The other mode found here is Star Sprint, and while Speak Up at least has some merit as a standalone mode, even when played with a controller, this one really needs the mic to be somewhat enjoyable from a novelty perspective. It's basically an auto runner, where your commands make your character jump, speed up or change lanes. Which means that when playing this with a controller, you're basically just playing a worse version of Super Mario Run. It's not a good time. And that phrase in general just sums up how the microphone is implemented in Mario Party 6. As a piece of Nintendo history, it is super intriguing and interesting, but from a gameplay perspective, it's lackluster. And so, when a new year rolled around and Mario Party 7 saw the light of day, the microphone returned? Maybe they had a warehouse full of them left to get rid of, or maybe developer Hudson Soft truly believed there was more potential here than they managed to bring to fruition in the 6th entry, but for the 2nd year in a row, Mario Party came bundled with a GameCube microphone. Its function in-game was also ramped up, suggesting that Hudson Soft really believed they had something here, with the number of regular minigames using it being doubled, half of them remaining 1v3, but also another 5 being 4-player minigames. Unlike modern Mario parties, the 1v3 minigames weren't recycled though, and were also brand new. You've got a Wheel of Woe, Boxing Day, Be My Chum, Stratosphere and Number Crunchers. From a mic perspective though, these minigames didn't bring a ton of new mechanics to the table. Hell, you were mostly expected here to say words that were already used in Mario Party 6, like directions and the name of Mario enemies. Arguably the most interesting part of any of them is the visual style of Stratosphere, which is quite similar to the style of New Super Mario Bros., which would be released a few months after Mario Party 7. Since only one player can hold a microphone at a time, the 4-player minigames that used it all went with a turn-based design. And I have to say, some of these are among the best implementations of the GameCube microphone. Particularly Balloon Busters, Clock Watchers and Dart Attack. And it's all for one simple reason. These games focus less on specific words and more on just saying anything in general. Clock Watchers and Dart Attack only have one word for you to say, being respectively stop and shoot. And while the GameCube microphone was not the most accurate at listening for specific terms, it could at least recognize when you said something, and that made these minigames work significantly better. Balloon Busters was not quite as simple, as you had to either say bigger or stop, but since the action of the minigame isn't automatic, but triggered by you saying bigger, you can afford to repeat yourself if your stop doesn't register the first time around. The other 2 minigames though, Oil Crisis and Math for Mortician, are similar to what we have seen before, requiring you to say directions and numbers respectively. Just like in Mario Party 6, all these minigames could also be played with the GameCube controller if the mic wasn't plugged in, at which point they basically become regular Mario Party minigames with worse controls. While the mic mode was cut, and as such, the 2 dedicated mic modes were as well, the potential role of the microphone during party mode was actually increased, provided you hadn't turned it off in the options menu. The mic space was introduced, where landing on would cause Toadsworth to appear and play a unique mic minigame with you, where you could bet coins and double your buy-in. I remember that at my household, putting a lot of coins on this was definitely not the meta move though, because the minigame is essentially the classic memory game with cards, with the caveat that you need to say the name of the fruit on the card. And even if you know there was a strawberry there, getting the microphone to recognize that was arguably the hardest part of the minigame. Outside of the boards in the main game, the microphone offered one more use, found in the duty-free shop segment of the game, particularly the souvenir stand. Saying surprise into the microphone when looking at a souvenir would cause it to move and make a little animation. And believe it or not, this was like 90% of the purpose of the microphone for me. There is not a word in the dictionary my microphone got thrown at it more than surprise. Especially since, once again, the hearing ability of the thing was very shoddy. And that undoubtedly played a role in the demise of the GameCube microphone following the release of Mario Party 7. Only 3 more games would support the device: the Japanese exclusive quiz game Densetsu no Quizo Kataisen, Chibi Robo Plug-into Adventure, the first game in the short-lived Chibi Robo series, and Adama, a pinball/real-time strategy game set in feudal Japan. The latter also came with a microphone holder, which allowed you to attach the thing to your GameCube controller, essentially creating Nintendo's first controller with microphone capabilities. But when the Wii came around, it became quickly apparent the GameCube microphone was not compatible with it, sentencing it to a life of collecting dust in game cabinets and attics worldwide. In 2008, the Wii would receive Wii Speak, its own microphone accessory to allow for voice chat, although similarly, only 4 games would ever support it, none of them being Mario Party or even Mario related. Microphone functionality would however remain present in the Mario Party titles for another decade, instead now being possible on handhelds, with all games on DS and 3DS implementing mic minigames as regular minigames. The top 100 even brought Balloon Busters and Dart Attack back from 7. But it's not the same. Sure, the DS sucked just as hard at recognizing your voice as the GameCube microphone did, but the feeling of speaking into a physical microphone, where you push a button like you're about to call for a cleanup on aisle 4 or announce a bit of turbulence, is not the same as bringing your game console to your mouth. It was strange, it barely worked, and looking back, I find it to be a business decision that's very hard to understand. But I cannot help but feel sympathy for the GameCube microphone. But hey, that's just me. What are your experiences with this thing? Or did you just find out this existed? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all my future Mario content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.